All right, let's talk about one of the wildest psychological challenges ever put on camera. Surviving 100 days trapped with a complete stranger, all for a shot at winning $500,000.
I mean, really think about it. You're completely cut off from the entire world, no sunlight, no windows, absolutely no idea if it's day or night. It's just you, four white walls, and the constant hum of artificial lights.
And yeah, you're not alone. You're locked in there with one other person, someone you've never seen in your life. Your sanity, your well-being, and every single penny of that prize money depends entirely on them.
Now, that sounds like an absolute nightmare, right? But what if the prize was enough to change your life forever? I mean, enough to wipe the slate clean and start fresh.
$500,000. That was the challenge staring down two total strangers, Bailey and Susie. And believe me, they were about to find out just how long 100 days can actually feel.
So the rules were brutally simple. If one person decides to leave before day 100, both of them get absolutely nothing. It's all or nothing, period.
You know, the setup itself was basically a psychological weapon. Sure, they had what they needed to survive, food, a bathroom, a place to sleep, but the whole environment was just designed to break them down. The same bland food day in and day out, no clocks, so time becomes meaningless, and those bright lights, they were always on. The mental toll from just being in that sterile, boring room, it kicked in almost right away.
Of course, this is a Mr. Beast challenge, so you know it's not just about waiting it out. To really stir the pot, every 10 days they got an offer to make life inside a little easier, but it was always going to cost them a chunk of that prize money.
So after 10 long days of eating the same nasty canned food, bam, the first temptation hits, a private chef for the next 90 days. The price tag, a cool $50,000.
And even though they were dreaming of real food, their willpower was solid. They stood their ground, said no, and kept their eyes on the prize.
By day 20, though, those lights were becoming a real problem, like physically painful. So the next offer was just cruel. Comfortable smart beds and, the real kicker, an off switch for those stinging lights. It was almost impossible to say no to.
And here's where you see the first crack. At the very last second, Bailey just yells no, a decision that you can see he regrets instantly. The weight of that mistake was so heavy as they watched those comfy beds get wheeled away.
Okay, so by day 30, you can tell their resolve is getting thin. The boredom is just crushing them, and they were finally ready to trade some cash for a little piece of sanity.
So they finally broke. For 20 grand, they got a coffee machine, which was huge for Susie, and the entire Harry Potter book collection for Bailey. You gotta understand, these little things felt like the biggest win in the world in that room.
But their biggest test, and what turned out to be their single greatest regret of the whole 100 days, came on day 60. The offer was simple: a mystery box for $50,000. They went back and forth, but in the end, they played it safe. They said no. And when the box was opened, oh man, it had their $50,000 back, plus 2 brand new Teslas. Bailey's reaction says it all. They were just completely gutted.
So after that whole Tesla disaster, you can imagine what was going through their heads. They were not about to make that same mistake twice. So when the final offer rolled around on day 70, you just knew they were going for it.
So Mr. Beast bundles everything they had said no to, the beds, the chef, you name it, and told them to bid on it. And this is just a classic case of loss aversion, right? The pain of missing out on those Teslas was so intense that it made them desperate. They were so terrified of that regret that they bid over $100,000, way more than it was worth. But you know what? They didn't care. They got everything.
Now you'd think, okay, they have all this stuff now. Things are finally going to be easy, right? Well, what's so fascinating is that it didn't bring them closer together at all. Actually, it just created a whole new set of problems.
All those tiny, everyday annoyances you have with a roommate, they started to boil over. Susie was constantly getting stuck with cold showers because Bailey would use all the hot water first. It's always the little things that get to you.
And their personalities just started to clash hard. Bailey had this super high, nonstop energy, and it just grated on Susie's quiet vibe. He wanted to play games 24/7. She just wanted to read a book. By the last few days, you could tell they could barely stand to be in the same room.
Which brings us to the very end. After 100 days of struggling together, all the psychological games, and all that tension, it all came down to one last, absolutely brutal decision.
They had to face the classic prisoner's dilemma. Each of them, in secret, had to choose. Do you split the money and cooperate, or do you steal it all and betray the other person? If just one person steals, they take the entire pot. But, and this is the kicker, if they both try to steal, they both walk away with zero after 100 days of misery.
And in the end, after all that isolation, all that temptation, all that annoyance with each other, trust won. They both chose to split the money, making sure they both walked out of there as winners.
It's just an amazing look into human psychology, right? Greed, trust, and what people can endure. And it kind of just leaves you wondering, after going through all of that, with that much money on the line, what would you have done?